Hello and welcome to Analysis with me, Jonathan Steele. It's been a horrifying week for violence against women across South Asia. First, Farzana Parveen, a woman who had defied her father's wishes to marry, was bludgeoned to death outside the High Court in Lahore. Aside from her father, 4 other people have been arrested in connection with her killing. The incident prompted international outrage, especially because video clips of the event showed that neither the police nor any onlookers attempted to intervene to save her. Days later, in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, 2 young girls were murdered and hung from a mango tree after having been gang raped. It was suspected that they were assaulted by a group of men on the basis of their caste. These are only a few more additions to the series of attacks, abuses and murders of women in the name of so-called family honour. While there is no official figure on the number of honour attacks across the world, it is suggested that millions of women are subject to this type of abuse every year, which includes being coerced into marriage, forced abortion and sexual abuse. And sadly, both at home and abroad, these attacks are becoming more and more frequent, with the authorities often turning a blind eye to it. So why do these so-called honour attacks still occur in the modern world? On what basis can they be justified? And what can be done to stop violence towards women, both in the UK and overseas? Joining me in the studio to discuss this are Zara Faris, a writer and Muslim activist, Anna Khan, solicitor and head of Islamic and Asian Department at Duncan Lewis Solicitors, and Dr. Suhaib Hassan, Secretary of the Sharia Islamic Council of Great Britain. And on Skype, we're joined by Rothna Begum, the women's rights researcher for the Middle East and North African region at Human Rights Watch. Welcome to you all. But first, let's have a look at this video report.
Human rights activists across Pakistan and India have condemned the murder of 25-year-old Farzana Iqbal, who was stoned to death by her family members for marrying a man of her own choosing. Investigators said Miss Iqbal's father and 20 others attacked the pregnant woman with bricks outside Lahore's High Court on Tuesday because she had married a man of her own choosing, Mohammed Iqbal, instead of a cousin they had selected for her.
At first, the woman held Farzana tight. Then her father and her brother, her cousin and other relatives started hitting her with bricks. During the scuffle, they also fired a shot.
The father of Miss Iqbal, who has admitted to killing her, has been the only person arrested in connection to the incident thus far. Protesters in Pakistan have said this must be seen as a wake-up call for the rest of Pakistani society.
We need to stop this barbarism, and I think it's government responsibility to arrest all those people, and it's shameful that only one person got arrested and the rest, all of them who attacked her, just they ran away from the spot.
Many conservative families in the country consider it shameful for a woman to fall in love and choose her own husband, despite condemning the killing. Almost 900 women died of such crimes in 2013, according to the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. Up to 1,000 were killed in a similar way in India, and 5,000 globally over the past year. A coalition of Pakistani religious leaders has issued a fatwa declaring honor killings to be a highly condemnable and un-Islamic action. The text reads,
"A daughter is a gift by Allah, and the feeling of being dishonored by your daughter is forbidden in Islam. Killing one's daughter and humiliating them is a sign of ignorance."
The All Pakistani Ulama Council is also organizing a summit on the 5th of June involving leaders from all sects to discuss honor killings. The meeting hopes to be a first step in ensuring these incidents never happen again. Flaminia Jambalvo, Islam Channel.
Well, Zara Faris, let me start with you, if I may. We heard one of the women there in that clip saying that she hopes this will be a wake-up call, these honour killings and the outrage that's been sparked. I mean, do you think that it will be a wake-up call? Will this lead to more pressure to stop these activities?
Well, one can only hope that it will be a wake-up call. The question is, a wake-up call to what? And I think the foundation of my statement there is that we have to understand what is actually happening in these so-called honor killings. And the reality is that crimes of violence, which are fueled by feelings of humiliation and jealousy, occur all over the world, not just in Eastern countries. I think sometimes when they occur in Eastern countries, such as India and Pakistan, there is a tendency to attribute it to the ideology of those societies, either the culture or their beliefs, and to say that these actions are a result of those beliefs. However, when the same things happen in other countries, so for example, here in the UK, a woman called Gillian Challen, she killed her husband due to feelings of humiliation and jealousy. She said, if I can't have him, nobody can, essentially. It was the same criteria as an honor killing. Similarly, a man killed his wife. He was a multi-millionaire tycoon because of also feelings of jealousy and rage. However, when it happens here, they're described as deviants from the ideology, and that these occurrences, when they happen in the West, are because these people are unhinged or there's something wrong with them. However, when they happen in the East, we automatically attribute it to the ideology and the belief system. And if it's going to be a wake-up call, I think we have to understand that when these occurrences do happen, they are abhorrent acts that are not attributed to any ideology, particularly Islam. They are also deviants of what should be the ideal beliefs of that society.
Well, Aina Khan, let me ask you to develop that point. I mean, so it's not an issue of religion, it's not even an issue of culture. It is just individual people behaving in this way because of certain emotional feelings.
Yes, the French even have a name for it, crime de passion. And so it means a crime of passion. And this is all about inflamed emotions. Nobody's thinking rationally. Very few of them plan ahead and premeditate. It tends to be feelings of ego, jealousy, pride, and then dishonor in our societies is linked to that. So I agree to a certain extent with what you're saying, but I will develop that a little further to say the reason we as Muslims feel more strongly perhaps about it is that our faith taught us that we should have zero tolerance towards this. This was a pre-Islamic way of behaving towards women and men, and our faith laid down very strong guidelines how never to have this happening in our society again. So when it's completely banned and there's such high evidential proofs for adultery, for zina, then how on earth can you take the law into your own hands? So our societies should be showing the way, and we're not. We've gone back to pre-Islamic norms, and that's what hurts the most.
But when you mention crime de passion, say it's heightened emotions, I mean, in the case of Farzana Parveen, it was premeditated, it was very rational. The family was there outside the court, they knew she was coming, they must have planned to do this. You can't say it was just done in sudden rage of the moment.
In that particular instance, it's even more shocking because being from Pakistan, I've stood at the Lahore High Court steps. It's a civilized, wonderful city with complete security, you feel, outside the High Court. So this is a brazen act in the complete confidence that no law and order exists in Pakistan at the moment. The police will turn a blind eye and that they will get off scot-free. You can see it doesn't matter to them at all that the public will see them doing this. So I agree with you. In this case, there's arrogance as well. They have planned it, but it's not to say that their emotions were not involved. What was the guiding force behind that was the emotion of being dishonored. Simply this, the father and brothers apparently decided she will have no free choice to marry who she wants.
Well, Sheikh Sohaib Hassan, can I ask you, is there anything at all in Islam that could possibly excuse, let alone justify, this kind of murder?
Of course, there is no justification whatsoever for any crime. No justification for any crime. This was a crime and a horrible crime. And the whole responsibility lies upon these ignorant father and the brothers who have done this act. As far as Islam is concerned, as Sister Aina Khan has just said, that Islam preserves the rights of the human beings. In pre-Islamic era, the girls were buried alive, and Islam came to give them life. And it was this practice was prohibited completely. So in Islam, there is a preservation of the rights of the man and the woman. If you look at the objectives of Sharia, which is the preservation of the religion and the soul and your wealth and your dignity and honor, it shows that if people understand these objectives, then they are not going to commit such an act. But because in the nature of the man, there is a savage part of a man as well. Because of that savage part, these teachings, divine teachings have been introduced, that if someone commits such a horrible crime, then he should be punished. And this is why when you say that we are in a modern world, yes, we are in a modern world, but the nature of the man is the same nature, which turns into sometime into an animal life, into a wolf. So this is why there should be a very harsh penal code to deal with such crimes.
Well, are the sheikhs, the imams, the mullahs doing enough in their Friday sermons, for example, to condemn all this and demand justice for these victims?
Of course, because as we know that I myself I'm an imam, and I always speak about such things. We have to create an awareness in the Muslim society that as a Muslim, you should not act in this way. You have to think rationally before you do any such type of thing.
Well, Zahra, let me ask you, do you think that the imams and sheikhs are doing enough?
Well, I think it's a very disappointing state of affairs when we need fatwas to tell us not to kill people, when it's a very fundamental understanding, there's a very fundamental principle in Islam that you do not take the life of another. Taking the life of one person is as though you have taken the life of all of mankind. And it's a sign of the decline of thinking in the Muslim world today. Where because of the state of anarchy that Muslims are living in, men are oppressed, women are oppressed. Some of the symptoms we are seeing, such as these honor killings, are exactly that. They are symptoms of a deeper problem. And the deeper problem is that the society is not founded anymore on Islamic principles or values. It is not governed by Islamic principles or values. And men and women do not have recourse to proper Islamic justice, which is provided by the Sharia and the Islamic legal system. And so we are given these situations, we are put in this situation where we have to witness these horrible crimes against both women and men. We've also seen, for example, in around about 2010, a surge in acid attacks, not against women, but against men too.
Well, I want to bring in Rathna Begum, because she specializes in North Africa and the Middle East. Rathna Begum, can I just ask you, why do you think it is that these killings seem to be so prevalent in the subcontinent, in Afghanistan, India, Pakistan and so on, or is it just because the media reports them a little bit more in those areas than where it's happening in other parts of the world?
There are a couple of factors when it comes to honor killings. So-called honor killings. One is that it's around discriminatory notions of morality, which are often invoked for women alone, and they can lead to murders. So when we talk about honor killings, what we don't talk about is also honor violence, which is a form of domestic violence at the end of the day. And the other factor that's not really looked at is the laws that govern these societies. So in places where you see honor killings, you also see a lack of accountability for a number of these crimes. So in a number of countries across the Middle East and North Africa, but not just the Middle East and North Africa, but in places such as Asia, you see laws that provide for pardonable offenses when you commit crimes of honor, or where the sentences are commuted. So for instance, in Pakistan, even though you have a really high rate of honor killings, when it comes to convictions, what it comes under is the issue of qisas, which is retribution offences. So in this case, for instance, if it went to court, because the murder was committed by the family, it falls within still the private right domain in which the family has the right to decide whether or not they should punish the family member who killed, to punish the murderer who killed their family member. But in this case, the person who killed the victim is actually a member of the family themselves. So often in these cases, they completely get away scot-free because the families themselves just forgive each other and allow them to be able to get away with it. And then in addition, where in the Pakistani Penal Code, beyond the private rights, there is still a provision that allows for heinous crime. So when it comes to murder, if the state believes that the crime was so heinous that because of public order, they should still be able to sentence them and convict them for such a crime. But for honor killings, the courts are rarely likely, they rarely convict people for honor killings in that respect. They do not consider it a crime of public order. And that is where the failing happens. When it comes to honor killings, there is not accountability for it.
But do we know whether the number of these cases is going up, I mean, proportionately to the fact that, of course, there's an increase in population? I mean, is there more of this killing going on? Or is it just that it's being reported more?
When it comes to the numbers of honor killings, it is so underreported, for one, partly because the families themselves are killing women, so they are not the ones reporting them missing. So which is why, you know, when we talk about numbers of honor killings, we're talking about really the peak of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg in this respect. So, you know, we're looking at hundreds of women killed per year across the world, even believed to be in the thousands. And it's not clear whether or not it's increasing or decreasing, or it's just simply being reported more. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, is it families who feel that women are vessels of honor, and when it comes to notions of morality, it is usually more likely that women will face the brunt of that notion more so than men.
And I mean, you talked about the fact that it's not cultural nor religious. I mean, is there sort of a paradox that perhaps because in parts of the world women do have more rights now and more recognition in public life and not confined within the sort of family compound and the family house, that somehow that aggravates the situation and men feel even more angry about these things? I mean, are men reacting in a way to jealousy of the women's position in general?
Yes, there is that point. I agree with Rosna that the concept of diyat, or financial compensation for the killing, is leading to some issues in countries like Pakistan, where the family, one member kills and the other family member accepts the money, and it's all buried very quickly. So you'd expect a wonderful, noble Islamic criminal code to be corrupted so much by that society. I understand that that's happening. What about in the UK? If we don't have that concept here, surely the criminal justice system should take care of things. But no, in the West London case recently of the Ahmed family, where the husband has just been charged with a horrendous crime of decapitating, cutting off the head of his wife, breaking both her arms. This is, as you said before, exacerbated domestic violence. You can't really call it honor killing. It's a dishonor for the whole of society, isn't it, that we call it honor killing. We don't know what his rage was. Was he jealous of her going out, working, seeing another man? We have no idea. But how dare he take the law into his own hands with impunity? What's happening? Now, I actually think there is a cultural aspect. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, there's a cultural aspect here. In Pakistan, for example, where Farhana Parveen is, or was, there's a refuge called Dastak in Lahore. You'd expect them to be Muslim refuge victims, but 1/3 are Christian. And Christians are only 1.2% of the population. So how on earth are 1/3 of domestic violence victims Christian? It's because in their Pakistani families, it's the same code of honor and izzat.
Well, on that note, we'll have to end the first half of the programme. We'll be talking about the wider aspects of domestic abuse and violence, not just the so-called honor killings, in the second half, so stay with us.